Hello, and welcome to Squid Pro Quo, a Squid Game podcast where there are only 3 rules. 1, a player is not allowed to stop podcasting. 2, a player who refuses to podcast will be eliminated. And 3, the podcast will be terminated if the majority agrees. I'm Sean.
And I'm Mike, and I want you to know, Sean, while I didn't do it the first episode, this episode I counted the 1, 2, 3 with you as you said it.
I didn't count. Can I tell you something else?
What?
I forgot I started until you said, all right, whenever you want to start. In the
Wait, what?
In the 5 seconds between you going, all right, whenever you're ready, and me starting, I panicked, opened up my browser, opened up where I wrote down how I start the episode.
Oh. I had no idea you panicked. You did great. It was beautiful.
Yeah, there was some panic there.
What a terrible start to this episode. Welcome, everybody. This is Squid Pro Quo, a Squid Game podcast, where Sean laid out the rules for you, said you agreed to it, so you have to listen. We are covering episode 2 of season 2 of Squid Game, titled Halloween Party. But before we dive into that, Sean, I don't know, we didn't mention this last episode, but we love to take emails from you guys at our email address, squidboysspq@gmail.com. That's squidboys with a IZ, you know, like boys. spq@gmail.com.
Squid boys.
And our good friends, Kim and Landon, sent us an email after the first episode. So if you want to be cool like Kim and Landon, please reach out, and I'm going to read the email for you. Welcome back. Kim and Landon returning for season 2, trying out your email to see if it's still working. It is still working. I know we didn't mention it, but it is still working. We agree that this episode was similar to season 1, episode 2 with pacing and storyline.
Mm-hmm.
As for the handsome man, maybe this is what he was always doing on his off time from the subway stations, messing with homeless people in the park. Because I posed the question, does this guy just do this? Is he doing it because, perhaps this particular method or particular meltdown was a way to cope with all the people he shot when he worked as a guard. The red representing their lives, the lottery scratchers their chance to win the games.
I like that. And I think I think that kind of goes along with the idea of he does this to justify what he's done to himself.
For sure.
Look at these people that deserve it.
When he smashed the bread, it symbolized his shooting the people as a guard, and he was able to make that their fault because they chose the games. I don't know. He's crazy. No, I like that. I like that reading.
That's more thought than either of us put into it. I really like that.
They also was really looking forward to Gi-hun's red hair pivot. Kind of a letdown that he went back to basic black within 5 minutes. Excellent recap. Glad you guys are back. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
For the email.
We're glad, to be back. That is the biggest retcon so far, right? Is they got rid of his fucking red hair really quick.
Yeah, they did. I don't know why they did the red hair just to get rid of it, right?
So here's my guess.
Okay.
Lee Jung-jae was cool with it until they said we're doing season 2. And then he was like, I'm not doing the red hair the whole time.
Yeah, I mean...
that feels like we did this because it was the end of the show and we did not have the thought process of now this person needs to look like this for 14 more episodes or however many episodes we have between this and next season. So I think it was just... my guess would be purely the actor or somebody being like, yeah, this ain't gonna work.
Yeah, and that makes sense, but the show kind of set up that there's going to be a season 2 with the way it ended, right?
I guess, but I don't know that they thought
you could end it there, but it'd be kind of disappointing.
But I guess my question would be do you think in their minds, do you think they thought it was going to become the hit that it was?
Oh no. Oh no.
And I think when you spend, he said he spent 10 years trying to get it made, I think it's probably I'm going to get this and I'm not going to get anything else. This is it. This is my life's work. And then I'm done. I'm going to jump off the bridge like that guy in season 1, the mob guy.
The mob guy.
I'm out of here after this season, so.
I watched that episode when he did that.
Yeah.
And I was taken aback because I watched the dub.
Yeah.
And I was taken aback when he's just like, come get me, you fuckers. And he runs. I was like, this guy's such a badass, dude. Holy shit. He kills the one guy and he goes, welcome to Korea, motherfuckers, come get me. And it's like, holy shit, what a fucking cool dude. Anyway, let's get into episode 2 here.
Well, here I do want to before we actually jump into the episode. There's a few things that I want to hit on just really quickly.
Okay.
First of all, you already brought up the email address. I also want to bring up that we have a Discord server where we're talking about the show. Well, Mike and I aren't talking about the show, but there are some freaks that have already finished it that are talking about the show.
For sure.
For context, we're recording this the day after episode 1. So the show's been out 2 days, right?
Yeah.
So freaks that have finished it already.
It's crazy. Now that you say that, I saw a tweet, not our Discord, but I saw a tweet of someone being like, it was I want to say it was like a couple hours after the show had come out.
Yeah.
And Netflix had tweeted, Squid Game Season 2 is now out in its entirety or something like that, like the promotional tweet. Yeah. And someone quote tweeted it and said, I ain't heard one motherfucker talk about this shit.
Yeah, they're still watching.
Oh, it's been out like 2 hours. Like, what are you talking about? People on the internet are nuts.
But if you want to, get your commentary on the podcast and you don't necessarily want to send us an email, that is another avenue that you can go down. Is join the Discord and, you can ping Mike or I in there and we'll get it, we'll get it read on the podcast. The other thing I wanted to mention up front, because I know that there's no way I'm going to be able to no-sell this through the entire episode as if it isn't the case. We've both seen episodes 2 and 3.
That's true. We did watch, because we're planning on recording episodes 2 and 3 back to back here. So we did watch episode 3. We're going to do and honestly, Sean is a very big on, I watch one episode, I record the podcast. I watch one episode, I record the podcast. Where I think when we did season 1, we had seen it before we even started,
and I had as well, yeah.
But I think even with the reality show, I watched ahead.
Yeah.
So I think I'm pretty good at not like tipping my hand.
No. And
where maybe you struggle with it a little more.
I think that I just know that I'm not going to be able to get through the episode without going, oh, well, we could talk more about this next time,
Yeah,
so I'm just putting the information out there. I know what happens in the next episode. And so if at some point in the episode, I'm like, I this is also why I like doing extensive notes, is because now I know how I felt in the moment about certain things. Because there's certain things that like maybe disappointed me in this episode, but are resolved or have, I feel better about after the next episode. And I want to make sure that I have the feelings that I had for this episode written down. So that's all I wanted to say before we jumped into the actual episode, though.
Right. All right. So let's jump into it. Halloween party. This episode picks up where we left off. Junho is outside the motel and he hears the gunshot of the handsome man taking his own life there, unaliving himself, as YouTube would want us to say.
Yes, or TikTok,
Or TikTok, true. He enters the hotel and he hears Woo kind of making a lot of noise because the handsome man was kind enough to bring him along for this journey.
I totally forgot about him. I was like, what is going on in this motel? Who's making that noise?
Yeah, I thought it was some sexy time happening or something, but no, it was him. He frees him and asks, where is Gihan? He goes, room 410, room 410. And he tries to arrest Gihan. For murder. And Woo is smart enough to, bonk him over the head and knock him out. Because he doesn't like cops, he doesn't like pigs, which he makes very clear later on in the episode. But Gihan doesn't also recognize him, and so there's kind of a standoff where he's like, no, me and Mr. Kim, we were best friends, and you remember me from the selfies? I've been looking for this guy. Oh my God, you killed him.
Yeah.
And he starts kind of crashing out a bit because he, obviously remembers that Mr. Kim is dead at his hand.
I was really impressed at how quickly this dude got with the program.
Yeah.
He's like ready to die. For the cause.
Well, and I'm glad they didn't do the trope where it's like for too long where it's like nobody trusts each other and the cop doesn't trust him and he doesn't trust, they really move on quickly from that, because I was like, in my head, I was like, oh God, now we're going to have a whole episode of can Gihan trust Junho? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm just glad they kind of, pass over it in the next scene and they don't really worry about it a ton after that. So I was pretty happy with that, because I honestly am so sick of that trope.
And not just that, one of the things that I was worried about while I was watching the episode, I made a note of, is when he knocked out Junho, I was like, oh great, like the main characters can't link up yet because we're too early. So I thought they were going to leave Junho there. And they were going to go off, and it was going to be like, oh, but no, it's, as we're going to talk about, like, no, it's like, no, these characters are coming together. We're getting, and
right.
This is something I could bring up now. I have this very I had this strange thought where I was watching, and in my head, they never could have done this, but in my head, I'm like, man, I wish this was episode 1, and I wish that the actual episode 1 was like a special that aired in between seasons or something.
Like a Christmas special?
Yeah, like a Christmas special. It's very Christmassy. I don't know. That feels so disconnected to me from the rest of, like, I don't know, what we see in this episode and the next episode. These 2 episodes feel more congruent in a weird way to me.
No, I agree. And I think it actually, I think, links back to what we were talking about with the hair, where I don't think he planned a story, right?
Yeah.
And then I think he had an idea in his head for a sequel, but then he's like, how do we connect what's happened in season 1 to what I want to happen? Yeah. So you're right. The first episode kind of feels like it's a lot of setup and it's a lot of getting to this point, right? Yeah. So I agree with that. I think, I don't know how they would have done it differently, but a special episode is a funny way to look at it.
It's a funny way, but I guess more the point of what I'm getting at beyond the funny special episode is just this felt more like a true episode 1 of the season to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So they talk, and they not only does Junho remind him, like, hey, we met at your house, but like I forgot that they interacted during the game.
Yeah, very briefly.
I completely forgot about that. And very briefly, he asks about his brother, and he's like, we don't have names in here. And so they kind of reach common ground on that. They both want to stop the games. He doesn't reveal the information that his brother is the front man for obvious reasons.
I mean, of course, I'm okay with that being held back. That's a pretty clear,
Definitely. And at first, he kind of refuses his help, but he says, hey man, I've seen stuff. I was in there. I've seen stuff that you don't even know about. Like, I can be helpful. And Wu is not a fan of this because like, the cops are always on our ass, man. And now he's a cop, but they after this talk, we cut to a scene with a character we've not met yet, who I wrote down as just homeless woman who lives in her car.
Yes.
And she's like, there's a night security guard that's like, hey, you can't, really stay here. Haven't I caught you here before? And she's like, I'm so sorry, I'll move. I work the early shift, blah, blah, blah. And we kind of get our first look at her. And then they cut back to Gian showing off his bat cave, man. Yeah. Brother's got just guns upon guns.
Yeah. This whole sequence was playing out. And I wrote down the note of like, I kind of don't want them to go back to the games. Like, there's something super like weirdly entertaining about like this show becoming like The Punisher.
Yeah.
for like an hour here.
It made me feel like I was playing a video game and like we got to the hub.
Like I'm in the safe house in Payday.
Yeah, especially when he's like, hey, you can test out these weapons all you want here. It's like, oh, is he telling me I can? Like, is this a tutorial,
Also, I will suspend disbelief, but this is a very, like, as an American, this is ridiculous. The idea, they're just like, yeah, it's just a firing range in this motel in the middle of the city. Like, definitely nobody will hear anything.
Well, and especially considering that Juno heard the gunshot of the guy taking his own life, like, moments earlier, right?
Like, I'm cool with moving past that, right? That's fine. But it was like a very, I'm an American. I don't know real guns. Motherfuckers would hear that.
Yeah. So after they do the firing squad practice, we cut to a Disney-style situation with a parade, where there's a bunch of like dressed-up mascots handing out candy, and a bunny mascot hands a lollipop to a tiny little girl with a strawberry hat, and this makes the girl happy because she got passed over by whatever the animal was before.
Yes,
and we cut to the dressing room, locker room, whatever you want to call it, of these mascots, and they're all bitching about how hot it is and how hot the suits are. But almost immediately, that little girl walks in, and everybody like puts on their masks again and starts dancing and having fun. And this is pretty true to life, because if you go to Disney, it is of the utmost importance. I know a lot of this because Tara worked there. It is the utmost importance that you do not reveal that the mascots are people in suits.
Yeah.
If you play, like, say you're Baymax, Sean, at Disney, that's your job.
I am very Baymax coded.
Yeah, exactly. You're definitely tall enough to be Baymax. I thought you'd be taller.
God damn it!
But you would, if someone asked you what your job was at Disney, you would not say, "Hey, I play Baymax." You would say, "I'm friends with Baymax."
Yeah.
That's how they instruct them to, do that. So they do that. The little girl walks up to the bunny, who we know is our homeless woman at this point.
Yes.
And hands her a drawing that she made, and it's very cute. And then the pig guy, that's what it was. It was a pig. The pig guy walks in. He's like, "Man, they don't have any ventilation for this." He's just like kind of a shitty in heel here.
Yeah.
And he realizes, oh no, this little girl's in here. And he quick puts on the mask and tries to make it, but she starts crying. It's about this time in my head, I'm like, where's this girl's parents?
Yeah.
And luckily my question's answered as her dad comes in and takes her away. And we find out that he's like a sketch artist, not a sketch artist, a character artist.
Yeah.
At the park they work at. And the little girl has blood cancer, is what he says.
Yep.
And she needs a bone marrow transplant. And you can tell this hits a chord with our homeless woman here.
Which
and we
we're
find out
learn,
why.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna learn later why.
An important part of the scene as well is when she's being handed the picture. There is
yes.
The little girl notices that our homeless woman here has scars on her wrists.
Yes, particular scars.
Yes.
And she goes, "What's wrong, Bunny? Did you hurt yourself?" And she covers it up. And we cut back to Gihan, who is in the familiar market area where Songwoo's mother runs her stand, and the Sae-byuk's little brother, who he left with her in her care, is a bit more grown up now. And he's, watching that and going, "Oh, that's great," And then he meets with a character from the first season that Sae-byuk met with and poured hot coffee on. Like, this actor is really funny to me.
Yeah.
Like, he keeps doing this, like, facial expression, like, where he, like, kind of pouts his lips out, and he's like, Like, he's always seems like he's saying,
Well, and a lot of the times he's like, "Oh, what a good person I am," and look at the trouble I'm getting into because I'm such a good person, And
he's Gihon's trying to get Sae-byuk's mother, out of China, I believe it is.
This is all This is all stuff that out of North Korea.
Oh, is it North Korea? I thought it was China because I remember in the first season I thought her parents were in China. I know she's from North Korea. That's why I was confused.
Oh, maybe they are in China. Were they taken to like a? No, they were trying to get her out through China. Right?
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, I know China was part of it. Like, I remember.
I'm pretty sure China is how they were smuggling people out.
That you're probably right about that. They were going through China to get to South Korea. That makes sense to me.
I think it was easier to get across to there than to get across the border, like the DMZ. So
that would make sense. So he's like, "Hey, you've given me a bunch of money. You've given me enough. It's just this takes time, and he leaves him with like a phone number and an address to where Sae-byuk's little brother is, so they can reunite if this woman is extracted from her horrible situation. This is another.
Oh my God, my voice gave out. This is another moment that I just felt like, again, I kind of talked about earlier. This feels more like episode 1 to the season to me, where this is like, okay, we're picking up on these plot threads of Sungwoo's mom and Sae-byuk's younger brother and her mother. And it's like, these are things that like, I was like, oh, I forgot these were like lingering plot threads. And I was very happy to be updated on what was going on with
Maybe
those.
they should have done one long episode and cut some of it.
Maybe. This
Like an hour and a half.
This might sound a little sacrilegious. Maybe call a little bit of the Dokji, I think is how it's said, Dokji guy.
Well, like the first episode had just like this incredibly long montage,
Yeah.
you know, like,
Yeah.
and maybe they cut that a little bit, and maybe they cut the guy having his crash out in the park with the homeless people a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they, you know, maybe he puts 5 bullets in the gun sooner. You know, like there's some things they could have like, and then made it into one episode. I think that maybe would have been what we were looking for.
And, looking at this, I'm looking at the second episode. The second episode's only about 45 minutes, 46 minutes, it looks like, by the time credits start. I mean, there's a good extra 5 minutes of credits at the end.
It almost seems like they were like, hey, bud, you need 8 episodes.
And he's like, right? I'm not getting to 8.
And he's like, I got 7. I don't know what you want from me. I got 7.
I got 7, but I got 7 more for next season, I guess.
Okay, yeah, exactly. So... I call her parade woman in my notes now.
Yes.
She's upgraded from homeless woman to parade woman.
Yes.
Shows up to the same guy, and she's looking for her daughter, who was an infant.
Her 1-year-old daughter.
Who everybody else she went to said they're dead, but he said it's a possibility she didn't die, but he doesn't seem to know.
It sounds like what he's saying is like, I mean, he pretty much explicitly says it. Dude, your 1-year-old daughter was left. Like, can I say that she's dead? No. We have no idea if she's dead. But she's a 1-year-old little girl, right? It sounds like everybody was telling her that this girl was dead because it's like, what other fucking option is there?
Right.
And we learned that she's a defector from North Korea who shot her superior.
Yes. And we also learned her name is Noel.
Yes.
And she hands him money, and he's like, hey, again, people are just handing me money today. It's probably because I'm such a good guy. But he's like, if money was the issue, I would have told you. So he kind of echoes the same thing to both of them.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because I feel like in the first season, he's kind of played out to be like a scammer.
There's a lot of people in this season, and I say a lot. It's really so. Since last time we recorded, to kind of refresh myself a little bit, I rewatched most of season 1 through like reaction videos. So I kind of refreshed a little bit on what happened there. And between him and the loan shark guy, Mr. Kim, there's some pretty big revisionist history of of how nice these guys were.
Mr. Kim is nice to Gihan now because he has the money, right? But
he's pretty extreme in that first episode. He like licks Gihan's blood.
Yeah, but they're like, they're loan sharks. You know what I mean? That's what they do.
I don't feel
but
like
if you have the money, they don't treat you like that.
I don't get the vibe from any of his guys that they are that extreme in this. Like I don't get the vibe that any of those guys are capable of licking the blood off of somebody.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Mr. Kim's got a dark past. You're not thinking about.
Well, I mean, we know he has a dark past. We saw it in season 1.
So, we cut to her later in her car again. And she takes a whole lot of pills.
Yes.
A large amount of pills, enough to probably, put you down. And there's a knock on her window, and she's like, "Great, the security guard again." But it is a squidman. Who hands her a squid card.
Yeah.
And so it seems like she's been invited to play the games. That's what they want us to believe.
On a rewatch, it's very like It makes a lot, like, while we're watching, I have kind of just the scenes playing in the background. And it's very clear that, like, this is not her being approached to do what we think it is, because she very clearly knows what this is about.
Right.
When they walk up,
they
and
don't draw a lot of attention to it, but in hindsight, you go,
you're like,
that
oh,
did seem weird.
Yeah.
So they're just giving out cards to people in parking lots now. You know what I mean? Like,
and the
if
people
you think about it, it's like,
are expecting them or know what it's about without any further context. It's like, clearly she had more
So, like,
information.
did she, like, go throw up those pills right after she got the car? You know what I mean? Like, what happened? What happened?
I think at this point it's like, okay, we got to cut away from her until the end of the episode, or else we're gonna show too much.
Yeah. Juno visits his brother's wife's grave.
We get a lot, like, this might be a, like, criticism note. This sequence of Junho, pretty rough on the exposition. Yeah, there's a lot getting thrown out.
There's a lot of his mother, like, yelling things at him that, like, you wouldn't yell at somebody because they know.
Yeah.
You know, she's like, he gave you his kidney. It's like, okay. Like, I should have given her something of mine. She died. You know, it's like, but we find out that they're not,
fully,
at least they don't have the same mother. We don't know if they have the same father or if he was adopted. They don't really go into detail on it. Meaning the front man, his brother.
Yeah, the mom says that the front man was her stepson.
Right. That at one point the front man gave him his kidney, gave Juno his kidney. And that his wife got some sort of, I don't remember exactly, but some sort of disease and died.
Yes.
And that's around the time things started to get weird with him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do we think, you know, theorizing, do we think maybe he went and played the games to try to pay for his wife's
that's definitely a possibility.
You know, medical thing?
Right.
Because we know that he won the games, right? They said that in season 1?
Yes, I do believe that is true when Junho is, like,
looking through the old lists of
and
winners and stuff. Yeah,
and that's when we're supposed to be teed off to the fact that number 1 is the mastermind because his file isn't there.
Yeah.
Or something like that, Anyway.
But this scene has, like, some really great acting, not obviously from the mother, but also from Junho. There's a line in particular where he's talking about how the frontman's wife died, and, like, he gives, like, a bullshit explanation for it, where he says, like, oh, you know, he gave me his kidney, but if he hadn't done that, then he could have sold his kidney, and then he would have had the money, and he would have been able to he would have been able to pay for the medical stuff, which is all, like, a bullshit explanation. But what he says that's important and what gets to the core of what he's feeling is, he says he simply paid for what he had done. And, you know, it's this, like, really emotionally charged moment of him sitting there, like, listening to his mother grieve over this person that he is sitting here and I'm sure having complicated emotions about, because he's like, this guy's, like, helping run a murder game.
He shot him.
And he shot him.
By the way.
Yeah.
He shot him.
Yeah. I feel like a list of worst things that the front man's done. I feel like running the murder games is a little bit worse.
Personally, though,
you know, I'm sure personally, like, that is weighing on him.
If, like, you know, Diddy shot you, sure, he has Diddy parties, but he fucking shot you, Sean. I think you'd be a little more focused on that.
Are we saying that in this world, the front man is the equivalent of Sean Combs, a.k.a. P. Diddy, a.k.a. Puff Daddy?
I just wanted to bring up somebody that was important to you. So, moving on.
Don't say that.
Moving on.
Well, I'm just really glad that next week you're going to be pardoned for your role on January 6th. This is just,
you know, I appreciate that. It's been a tough year for me.
Yeah.
So at the parade, the little girl's there with the strawberry hat again, and the bunny ignores her, and she's kind of like, what the? And it causes her to collapse and go to the hospital. No, that's not right. But that, in my head, I was like, man, she's in the hospital because she had a broken heart because that bunny didn't give her a lollipop today.
And that's all this girl's fault, because she wasn't in the bunny costume.
Because she's quitting.
Because she's quitting. And so not only is she killing this little girl, she'll also get to kill her dad later.
Yeah. So
I don't know if that's the case. But yeah.
So some real toxic workplace stuff from the boss here.
Yeah.
You know, trying to, like, you know, you You're not even gonna give me a 2 weeks notice. You should come to the party tonight to say goodbye. You know.
Yeah.
And the weird pig guy comes in and he's complaining about other shit, and they're talking about how basically the point they're trying to make is she has a very cold personality.
Yes.
But then we see the little girl in the ambulance and or getting put in the ambulance, and her dad stops drawing his characters to run and take her to the hospital in the ambulance, and she drops her strawberry hat, which Noel picks up. We cut to Gihan getting a tooth pulled by a sketchy dentist because they're putting a tracker into a molar.
Yes.
As part of their plan. The dentist is very sketchy and kind of grubby looking.
I like this is such a fucking the dentist. The dentist kind of reminds me of Trump's doctor. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do.
Do you see it?
Yeah. Oh boy, I like how Wu gives him the money and then does like a zip your lip thing, and he's like, zip my lip, you know?
Yeah.
So, by the way, have you ever had a tooth pulled, Sean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
fucking Gion fucking raw dogs that shit.
Right, no anesthesia, of healthy tooth from what it appears, just pulled the fuck out.
We can safely assume he took a super soldier serum in between seasons 1 and 2, right? Based on what he does in this and next episode.
Brother is John Wick, like suddenly, like it's crazy.
Yeah. Cap should have given him the shield.
Yeah. One scene I glossed over that we didn't really talk about is he shows them, and I wanted to ask you about this. At one point, he shows them his giant pile of money.
Yeah.
And it's just like sitting in a room like a bed.
Yeah.
If you had that much money, Sean, and you were like trying to be like, you weren't trying to put it in the bank, right? Because whatever.
Yeah.
Would you just keep it in a room like that?
No, but I actually kind of really enjoyed the visual of that, even though, like, again, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Because the vibe I got from it was, like, I liked what he said about, the vibe I got is that he's only spending it on stuff to take down.
Right, on, like, his bat cave and the guns.
You know, like, there's a really big pile of money, and, like, there's kind of there's less taken out of it than you'd think. Right, like there's more there. He hasn't touched as much of it as you would think, and I don't know. I think that does a lot for Gihan's character.
So after the dentist, we cut to the hospital where Nayeon is the name of the child, and she needs experimental care. The dad doesn't have the money. Of course, this is a theme in this show.
Yeah,
people dying due to their poor financial situation and not being able to get the medical care. It happened to Gihan's mom in the first season.
Hang on a second. I thought this was a show about people jumping on glass bridges and falling and laughing.
No, this is a very politically charged show, Sean, believe it or not. But maybe good health care shouldn't be considered politics. Maybe it should just be something people have.
Whoa. Okay,
Call me crazy.
Don't get crazy. Don't get crazy.
Call me crazy. Well, I can't think of her name suddenly. Noel. I'm gonna struggle to say
her name's kind of hard to say for me as well.
Noel. She returns the hat to the little girl, and the dad comes back and finds it. Not really a whole lot, just that, hey, they're painting the fact that she has a soft spot for this girl because she's missing her own daughter.
Yep.
Wu, back at the Gihan cave, Wu has recruited a bunch of soldiers.
We see like actual fucking John Wick in this scene.
Yeah.
This dude.
Ex-Marines, all of them. And he kind of takes a shot at Junho. It's like, this guy's just an ex-traffic cop, right?
Yeah.
And they have a plan. They don't go into super big details on the plan, which I like. I like that
we're in the dark a little bit.
Right. That makes one of the reveals later kind of fun. And And then Gihan goes in the other room and calls his daughter, but he can't bring himself to say hello to her.
Yeah, that
And he's
scene
just
was
kind
rough.
of breathing into the phone. It's tough, man. It's tough.
It was at this point that I did write down as the army was training in the Gihan cave. Can we call it the Ganbu cave?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. While they were training in the Ganbu cave, I wrote down, I was like, oh, that's why the boat guy's here. He's going to transport their private militia that they've recruited.
Yeah. Someone needs to.
And I did write down the leader of their private militia, whose name is Kim.
Oh, yeah, that's confusing, too. I remember seeing that, and I was like, wait, Mr. Kim?
Yeah.
Noel, sitting around a classic homeless person fire outside her car, calls the squid.
Yep.
She calls the squids, and they give her directions. And then we are at the club that was on the card that was on Mr. Handsome's body.
At the club.
And I guess I want to ask you this question now before we get into it. To me, when they get to the club and Gihan goes in, it's like they knew he was going to be there. So did they know that this was going to happen? Like, did they know that he was going to kill the handsome guy? Or did they find out he got killed and then said, oh, it was Gihan that did it, so now we have to set this trap?
I think they know everything.
It seems like they know everything, right?
So there is something raised in the next episode about possibly, very offhandedly mentioned, maybe there's a mole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So,
for sure.
I mean,
maybe that was it. Yeah.
I haven't really put a whole lot of thought into that yet because there was a lot of other stuff happening in the next episode.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, now that you're bringing this up, I mean, look, like, I think it's weird that Junho lived after falling off. And I'm not saying that Junho's in on it, but like, we know that Gihan had like a tracker in him, right? Like,
yeah.
Who's to say Junho doesn't have fucking something in him, you know?
That's true. You're right. So anyway, they go in the club and Wu buys this funny green horse mask because he's like, hey, it's Halloween.
Dude, Wu is my favorite guy.
Yeah.
If he dies, I'm going to be really upset.
Yeah, he's pretty fun. He's been a pretty fun character. He brings a lot of like levity to like things.
Yeah.
I
think he kind of fills like the Ali role.
Yeah, definitely.
Which if they kill him in as sad a way as that, I'm going to be really upset.
So they come up to the conclusion that, hey, they picked this club on this night because it's Halloween and it's a silly American holiday, but this club's going to have like a costume party because of it. And Gihan and Wu go in. The squids show up shortly after, and Junho sees them and follows. Wu gets like immediately tasered.
Why don't they kill Wu?
Because you can't just kill somebody in the middle of a club.
No, but they taser him in the middle of the club. They can take him out somewhere.
Yeah, I suppose.
I mean, you're already suspending my disbelief a little bit that they walked up and fucking tasered him in the middle of a club because it was very noticeable.
It was noticeable, but it's the kind of thing where like you and I are in that club and we're just we're drunk, we're having a good time.
Yeah.
We're like, wait, did that guy just get tasered?
Yeah.
And then we just shrug and keep partying.
Yeah. We're like, that guy just get tasered? And then Boomer goes, who wants Jaeger bombs?
Yeah, exactly.
And we're like, fuck.
So, Gihan doesn't get tasered. Well, and also, I was going to say this and then I get distracted, but they're not super into killing people outside of the games.
That's true.
Right?
Well, I don't know.
They're not super.
I guess Doc G Guy did play a game before he killed.
Right. That was because they brought the fight to him though, right?
I guess. I mean, I don't know that I would say they deserve to die for following down an alley.
I'm not saying that they deserve to die. You just typically don't do a lot of killing outside of the games.
That's true. You
know, from what we've seen, at least.
Yeah.
Gihan gets let out back by the other pink guy and gets in a familiar-looking limo. Junho gets there right as the limo's pulling away, and he says, hey, all of the teams, like, let's follow this limo. And there's a fun little piggy bank in the middle of the limo, and that's how the front man's talking to Gihan. and the front man is seems a little confused about what Gihan even wants.
Yeah. He's like, why the fuck are you doing this? Go
he
home.
said, you should have got on the plane. This is a terrible decision. What are you trying to do? And Gihan tells him his plan of he wants to stop the games. He wants to make it so no one has to play it. And all the people that are in charge of it, take him down or whatever he has to do to make him stop. They kind of drive in circles for a long time, and being ex-Marines, they kind of figure this out, but it's a little too late.
Yeah.
There's a sniper on the roof who shoots out some of the tires, but then also Junho's car has like an explosive device under it.
Yeah.
Which is pretty crazy. So they're all disabled, the cars. And so Gihan makes the decision to start shooting at the driver, but it's bulletproof glass.
Yeah.
And when he realizes that their plan's not working to try and capture the front man, who's not there, or so we think.
Yeah.
He says, "Hey, bring me to the games." And he kind of goads him into it, like, "Hey, what are you scared you're going to lose to me again?
Yeah.
Just like your boss did. Wouldn't your VIPs love me coming back, the winner returning?" He gives him all the reasons in the world. And the front man's finally like, "All right, man, if this is what you want," and they gas him.
Yeah.
And then Junho goes, "It's time." You heard that, everybody. It's time for Plan B.
Yep.
So that's like, oh, this is their contingency, which is nice. Like, it's nice that they didn't tell us that.
Yes.
Because it seems a little bit desperate by Gihan in the moment, but then you realize, oh, this is what. I mean, it makes sense because they put the tracker in him, right?
Yeah.
Also, I skipped this in my notes, but when the front man's like, "Have you ever seen The Matrix?"
Yeah, that scene
super
was
fucking hard.
That scene was really silly. Yeah. Do you think maybe the front man just like
red pill?
Do you think the front man really just wants a friend to talk about movies with or something?
He might. Well, also, like, do you think he just saw The Matrix and that's why it was on his mind? Because that's like a super old reference at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's like, I saw this movie the other night, The Matrix. Keanu Reeves is in it. He's really good. Like what?
Yeah.
He like caught it on late night TV or something.
He's like, I'd only ever seen him in Constantine, but wait, what's John Wick?
Dog shit movie.
He's like, what's John Wick?
Have you ever seen The Devil's Advocate? That movie's weird as shit.
For the rest of the fucking season, I'm just gonna be thinking about Frontman. Just
and Keanu Reeves movies specifically.
Well, just him like randomly kind of wanting a friend and just being like, yeah. So I was playing COD last night. Just like,
do you know they put John Wick in COD?
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah, I hear James Gunn is going to do a sequel to Constantine. That's weird. He's just.
I can't believe they delayed the Batman another year. So
if they just let Zack Snyder finish his vision.
Okay, all right. He's not a Snyderverse guy, okay? The front man's better than that. So the final scene of the episode, our pal, our homeless gal pal, shows up to where even when she like walks into this truck, Sean, and it has the doors with the numbers, I'm like, man, they've kind of stepped their game up with how they like take these contestants in.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the same thing.
I was like, man, wow, this is cool. They're not even gonna drug them. They're just gonna let them sit in these little like things. And then she puts on the uniform and it plays the beep 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 beep, and it's like, oh, she's not a contestant. She is one of the guards.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of fun that we're taking a look at like how the Squid Game works behind the scenes,
So far, this is my favorite part of the season, is her.
Yeah. And I wonder how it's going to manifest itself. I mean, we know from episode 3 already, which we'll talk about a little bit. Next episode, we see a little bit of it, but very interesting path we're taking here.
And I mean, I think
learn a little more.
I think this is something we said at the end of season 1 that we wanted to see.
Yeah.
In a season 2, is we were like, we really want to see behind the scenes of the games.
Yeah. And I think we're going to get a little bit of it. Any overarching thoughts about this episode as a whole?
Yeah, I really liked this episode a lot. Like I said, I think this was more what I was looking for when I started the season with something like this. It continues plot threads from last season that I really enjoyed and wanted updates on. It, brought together Junho and Gihan finally, two characters that kind of circled each other's orbits for all of season 1, and so getting to see them kind of team up and do this thing is really cool. It, I think that visually, this episode takes place a lot more at night than last episode did, and I think the show just looks better.
Daytime,
this show just looks better at night, guys. I don't know what to tell you. There was some really fun. One of the things this season is really playing up more that we'll talk about next episode is the use of colored lighting. And we get little tastes of that in this episode in the motel and in the nightclub. There's some really nice ways that the lighting, the colored lighting hits the characters' faces and stuff. And the the third episode does a lot more with that. I liked one of the things that we kind of didn't talk too much about was Gihan explaining that, like, his target is the front man.
Right.
That, we kind of talked about, like, I want to say, didn't last episode we talk about, like, why he's doing this? Like, what is?
Yeah, I brought up, like, hey, he killed not killed, but the guy, mastermind's dead, right?
Yeah,
and so it's like, what is he exactly going after here? And they make it a little clearer in this episode.
I don't know that it still like totally answers your question, but it did make me think of that when he was talking about like explaining what his kind of end goal is here. It feels more, and I think that we're gonna get it. We can talk more about this in episode 3, but it does feel less like I need to stop the games to save people in the future, and more I need to get revenge.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. The line between those two things is very blurred for him right now.
Yes.
And I wonder if we'll explore that a little more as the season goes on.
I have a feeling that might be a theme of the season.
All right. Well, I also enjoyed this episode. I know I told you it wasn't my favorite. It's not my favorite.
Yeah. No.
But I did enjoy it. You know me though. I'm just like, get me to the games. Which next episode we're gonna do. So I'm very excited for that. Please look forward to that episode. Sean, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Sean_AFK. I'm here. We do a podcast. We do a podcast. We do a podcast named what is this, a crossover episode? It's about BoJack Horseman. We're gonna roll into the next season of that after we finish this.
It was really nice of the creators of Squid Game to include a BoJack Horseman reference in this episode with the horse mask. So
that's true. That was
shout out to them for
I mean Netflix.
Netflix. Yeah, it was definitely Netflix.
But I mean, they're both Netflix.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. I didn't realize we were covering 2 Netflix shows. Until now. Yeah. Weird. Anyway, you can.
We
find
should
me
cover Too Hot to Handle next.
Oh my god. I'd rather cover a Great British Baking Show or something. So you can find me at SpikeGhetti Bros on Twitter, twitch.tv/Super SpikeGhetti Bros, where me and my brother stream video games. And then our other podcast network, Super SpikeGhetti Bros Podcast Network, the home of this podcast, the BoJack Horseman podcast Sean mentioned, and also the Ansem Report podcast, the longest running Kingdom Hearts podcast in the world, Million Dreams Award winning podcast. So anyway, Sean, I agree to end this episode of the podcast.
I also agree to end this episode of the podcast.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.